go ahead and kick it off? Yeah, I saw that. I saw that might should. So, yeah. So we can talk while y'all eat. Yeah, just make sure that as we're up here and you're eating your burrito, that maybe you got a napkin, because these are really nice chairs.
Thanks, Mom.
I'm just trying to be helpful for Patsy. He's the boss. That guy in the window is the real boss, okay? I'm still a little bit at a loss for words from that last episode, but that won't last very long. So this is a conversation with some really amazing people about mentorship. And I guess I'm just going to run down the line and ask each one of you, what does mentorship mean to you? Do you have a soundbite that you want to throw out? Do you have a story that you want to tell? Do you want to talk about who your mentor was? Why is mentorship important to you, Ms. Chrissy Ogan?
Thanks, Lynn. Well, you have self-identified as one of my mentors, and I would agree that that is the case. Lynn taught my level 2 back before the split in 2017, maybe 2016, and has been, yeah, I know you have a million students, but has been keeping tabs on me ever since. Mentorship is hugely important in our industry because there's no real guidebook to kind of end up where you want to end up. Like, you know, we have standards that we expect out of instructors or whatever, but how to get there is just it can be really challenging and impermeable sometimes. So finding someone who's willing to take your hand and kind of lead you through that, to me, has been hugely helpful and important. And I think you've taught me the importance of giving that back to people. And I think there's a difference between just coaching and mentorship, and I think the difference is forming a relationship with the person and kind of really getting to know them, and like you've done to me, like keep tabs on them through the years and kind of check in with them. Be like, okay, what are you thinking now? Like, what are your next steps? What tangible things are you gonna do to get there? So you can have like the short-term coaching and like offer advice, but mentorship to me is like having an actual relationship with someone.
I can't really top that. Yeah, it's like dating. It's not going to work with everyone. And that's normal, I think, right? Like it is a relationship and it's a give and take of both parties. And I think when you mentioned it, I think of it now as like, I get a lot of people reaching out and just expecting it, kind of, rather than viewing it as a relationship. Like, it kind of depends on the circumstance, but sometimes in the industry, I feel like I'm viewed as a stepping stone for someone to just take out for a field day, and then they can use me as a reference for something. And I think the beauty of mentorship is like really wanting to spend time with someone out, walking around outside, doing what you enjoy, and them pointing out things you don't even know to look for, and then also showing you what the career actually is. Because even next to 5 or 10 years ago, like without social media, a lot of our jobs were not revealed or like sold this idea of online versus what the reality of it is. And I think sometimes people are interested in the career path because of how it looks externally, whether that's guiding or whatever else, versus what the actual job is. And a mentor can help you in the mountains, help you see what that job is, and then from there you can see if it's actually something that you want to pursue for your life. But it is a relationship of give and take for both parties.
That kind of reminds me of those old, like, I mean, this is probably dating myself a bit, but like those old internet memes where it's like how I see my job, how my parents see my job, how the public sees my job, and what my job actually is. And if you were to do for public forecasting what our job actually is, it's probably sitting at a computer.
Or texting.
Or texting, yes. No, absolutely. Like my phone, so we're an evening forecast center at NWAC, so we've at 2 o'clock, I sit down to work on tomorrow's forecast. My phone blows up nonstop every single day, whether I'm working or not, from 2 to 4. And like, I am not a popular person, so like, it's just like constant observations. So to try to take a little bit different step, I'll talk a little bit about one of my early mentors, and it's sort of part of a conversation Lynn and I had over breakfast. We were discussing a mutual friend, and she was talking about how she had sort of seen in him this desire, this knowledge, this skill, probably before he even knew he had it. And for me, one of the attributes that I see in mentorship is, from the mentor perspective, that they have the ability to see that in the person, even though that person might not find it. My early mentor was actually my boss, this guy Mike Ferrari. I still have no idea why Mike hired this snot-nosed kid from Alabama to be a ski patroller. Like, I barely knew how to ski. But one of the things that I really look at with Mike, and that I took away from that experience, Mike was really, really talented at giving me just enough rope to hang myself, but never, ever letting me hang myself. And that skill is something I try to channel my inner Mike Ferrari all the time, because he was so talented at not overbearing me, not oversteering me, giving me those nice soft-sided bumpers on the bowling lanes so that I could bowl a strike. I told you, it's hamburgers, crayons, bumpers. It's just the way my brain works. So that's a thing that I really see in my mentors and try to emulate with people that I work with now.
I'm excited I get to go last. I agree with everything that has been said, and so I don't have to repeat those things. I am also somebody who identifies Lynn as a mentor, and I've been mentored by Lynn. And when I think about mentorship, one thing that I think about is it often actually isn't that tight one-on-one relationship. I think in best cases it is, and I've had that. However, when I teach professional level avalanche courses, I often get folks asking, like, how do I find a mentor? Like, how? And the reality is a lot of people really actually do not have the time to mentor somebody outside of their organization that they work with and the newer staff that they're bringing up. And when I think about people that I identify as mentors and have looked to, I think, Lynn, like about you, like you have actually mentored me in a very intentional and direct way and followed my career, but also I have just followed your career. And I think that I see mentors as people who I look to, whether or not they know it, and I am keeping tabs on them, and I'm taking courses from them or seeking out trainings from them or going to their talks, and am taking the responsibility to learn from them. And I think about these people who are mentors to me, and they might not even know they've been mentors to me, and that has been really important. And I actually think it can take a very long time until you are really able to enter into that tight relationship, because it takes some groundwork to get there. And I think people should have responsibility for their own progression. And the things that you can learn from peers is incredible. And so, like, get out there with friends and build your skill set with peers. And then as you develop, like, you're gonna have more to give to that relationship. And honestly, like, I've also said this a lot to students, it's like, you gotta demonstrate that you're gonna live in that town for more than 3 years. Because, you know, like, that's really common around here, unfortunately. And so it takes some time. But as you can see up here, like, the other thing that I spend a lot of time doing is riding horses. And we don't really talk about mentorship in that world. I train horses as directly. However, there are all of these people who I go take clinics from, and I have all of these friends who are also projecting the same issues in young horses as I am, and my mentorship there is 100% peer-to-peer. And in the avalanche industry, I find that we expect it to be somebody with more experience is gonna give you their time, and that would be amazing if we could do that, and like Lynn has done that for me. But it was a long time before we like skied together, you know? I was just like following you and taking courses from you and checking in on you, and then you were checking in on me, and you know, I had to go learn for myself for a while. And so I just wanted to like make that plug because I think that's part of it, and I think a really meaningful one-on-one relationship is the ideal, but we need to be flexible and look for mentorship in all of the places. Soapbox, sorry.
One of my friends has a term for that. Liz Riggs-Meter, who worked for ARI for years, she calls it friendtorship. And I really appreciate that. Like, Liz and I are very different people, and we ski together a lot, not a lot. We try to get out as much as possible, and I feel like I learned so much from spending time on the skin track with Liz, and it's definitely a friend-torship relationship.
The more that you guys talk, especially Liz, the more she checks off the boxes of the things that I was going to say that, but that's great.
You've mentored me well.
Yeah, but yeah, you don't have just one mentor in your career, you know, like I might have mentored you, but now you mentor me. Well, yeah, how much do I know about being a paramedic or being a ranger on Denali? You know, there's some commonalities that we can talk about, but boy, I learned things from her. I learned things from you. I learned things from all of my students. And what does that take? It takes a lessening of my ego. That's really, really hard. To learn things, to listen to your students and to say, wow, that's a really good question. Maybe I should have covered that in class because your questions help me become a better educator. And yeah, we mentor each other all the time. Rod Newcomb was very much like that with his infernal curiosity, you know? And oh, God, yeah, he was so good at that, and he had so little ego. He was so excited for you. Oh, you got to go poke your hands in that avalanche? That's really amazing. That's great for you. Instead of, you know, some of those people that, you know, they're like, how nice for you. You got more points than me on that one in the infernal point gathering. So, anyway. Cool topic. Back to you. Back to either one of you. Y'all are both picking up the mic. Oh, yeah.
You go.
You want me to go?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I was just thinking about something that Liz said that really resonated with me, and that is if you want to be mentored, you need to put in the legwork to prove kind of that it's worth mentoring you. Like, well, it's a good point, right? Because I think about people that I mentor who are younger than I am at work. Like, I want to see that they have a good work ethic and that they're going to be committed to what they want to learn before I take the time, which, you know, mentorship, it takes a lot of energy. So before I put time into someone, I want to see them prove that it's going to be worth it. And I think that's how I have entered into some good mentorship relationships and gained some good mentors, like, you know, by working hard and showing up and showing that it's worth putting time into me. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. Dad, just never underestimate the power of good old-fashioned grade A curiosity, because we can tell when you have it or not, and if it's genuine. That's like, you know, there are these blurred lines between like being, what is avalanche professional, right? It's this fusion of like someone who's proficient in the mountains and also a nerd, perhaps who's neurodivergent, has a hyperfixation, right? And we can tell when there's another one in the room, usually. But, exactly. Like, don't confuse it with just like being rad outside in the mountains. Like, I think, again, that social media blur is like, you know, I'll have someone come talk to me. They'll be like, yeah, I've skied this and this and this and this and this, and I want to do this project. What do you think I should do? And I'll be like, is this my project? Or like, you know, it matters that you can walk with us in the mountains so we can help show you things, right? But the physical proficiency, that all can come later. The much harder part is showing that you have a process already that you're working on to think about the snow. And then we can help build that process and show you our process, and you can take what you want from that or leave the parts that don't serve yours. But you have to be interested in a long-term process that is not immediately gratifying, because that is what everything in the mountains is about. Like, taking time, self-reflection, not having instant gratification, truly looking at things instead of just wanting black and white, because everything is gray in the mountains, as Dallas pointed out. I guess everything's very gradient colored,
It's
but
very
gray.
colorful. It's very, very colorful.
Exactly. The spectrum. So if you show you're interested, you're creating your own process, you're genuinely curious about something that is like fascinating, right? It's complex, it's fascinating, and you're curious. That's who we want to walk with and talk to, because that engages that part of us that's still like that.
That brings up something for me. I'm going to jump in. That, Lynn, I think you do exceptionally well is provide a sounding board. And so oftentimes for me, mentorship has not looked like you're taking me out for a day and we're digging snow pits together. And I don't mean you, I just mean like anybody. Mentorship that has actually been some of the most impactful mentorship for me has been like when I can come with a curiosity to just chat with you. It doesn't have to be in the field, and debrief something with you and pick your brain and get your perspective. And that could just be a 3-minute conversation, honestly, or a text message. But that time has been really meaningful mentorship because I get to like present something I've been chewing on and then learn and have something I can reflect on and spin in, and it's that curiosity piece. But that has almost been more impactful than, you know, folks who I've gone and spent, 8 hours touring with.
I will say that over time, that these mentor-mentee relationships, the titles become fluid and really irrelevant. And people, one person in particular whom I mentored since he was 19, he now mentors me. He's like, Lynn, we're going out in the park and you haven't been out in the park all year. Here's what we're looking for. And I have to swallow my ego and be like, yeah, you just taught me something and you gave me something to think about. And so, yeah, the titles and the roles, think of them as very fluid.
Also, like, read a lot. Everything's online. Like before I started public forecasting, I was just forecasting for a road, and so only operationally people within the NPS and a road crew would read it, and so it's far different. As Dallas mentioned, we are professional communicators to a large degree, and that's just a different product to try to do. So I would just pour over Chris Lundy's forecasts. He was a forecaster in the Sawtooth, and essentially just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna write tomorrow based on Chris Lundy's forecast. And then I just emailed him out of the blue and was like, hey, thanks for the mentorship. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I use a ton of, I don't know if you've noticed that my forecasts sound a lot like yours, but they're pretty much like, using yours as a template. And I really appreciated that mentorship, like from afar, even though you didn't know it. So yeah, absorb as much as you can. And like, again, like our emails are online. Like everyone who emails me, I try to respond. The same with like when I was running the BTAC Instagram. I mean, we get so many messages and I just tried to respond to everyone's. If they had a question about what they saw in the snow or whatever else, like never underestimate the power of like a cold contact, especially if you just have a curious question. Yeah.
Why don't we go to you all? Let me grab the box. And while I'm grabbing the box, okay, sure. Yeah, while she's grabbing the box. Anything else before we open it to you all? Go, Dallas.
One last thing that I was kind of thinking about with some of what you just said, Gabby, was like, I also like people that don't think exactly like I do.
Oh, yeah.
That I want some of these people that I'm intentionally interacting with to present at least a different perspective. So whether they're maybe a different travel mode, maybe they come from a different place. Sometimes I really like, actually right now, I was telling Lynn, I'm like sort of getting to that place where I'm like, seem to be more the old guy in the room. And I'm like, I really like young forecasters right now because they ask me lots of questions that challenge what I think. And so that's something that I find I seek out a lot, is somebody who looks at the world differently than I do. And that might mean that they're not an avalanche professional, but they can still mentor me quite a bit in what I do here.
I think that's some of the best stuff that has come into the avalanche world in the last 10 years. I like to think that that's something I've done at the Avalanche Review is bring in things like Sarah's work and Jenna's work from, oh geez, help me out, you guys, the Thinking in Bets gal.
Annie Duke.
Annie Duke, yeah. And so I've tried to take that work from them and turn it back to my students and to tell you, start thinking in bets. I bet that we can get to the ridgeline in half an hour. Did you get to the ridgeline in half an hour? Yes, great, you bet right. You didn't? Why didn't you? Why didn't you make the right assessment there? What did you get wrong? You know, was it too windy? Were you going faster than you thought? But look at where your assumptions were smacked out of the room, and that's not a bad thing. It's just helping to refine your ability to make small bets. And if you make a bunch of, get to be really good at small bets, then what happens? You get to be better at making big bets. So work on the small bets. Okay. Anything, any retorts? Okay, questions? Observations? Have y'all had good mentors? Okay, check the box at the lady in the back row. Oh, she didn't want the box.
I love that we have like sports in this conference.
Okay, hi. My question is about mentorship in the workplace specifically. I feel like sometimes when we talk about mentorship in this industry, it's kind of like people you took courses with or people you don't work directly with. And I'm just curious how you think that is navigated differently in, like, for example, a ski patrol setting, and sometimes with like hierarchy and crossing those boundaries with coworkers, and just how to go about that.
Ooh, that's a big one. You want to take it first?
Yeah, through this discussion, I've been thinking about that a lot because, you know, there's like the mentorship. I think we've mostly been talking about mentorship outside of work so far. And in my head, I'm like, most of my mentors have been from work, either on ski patrol or, you know, in the climbing program on Denali. And ski patrol is such a, yeah, it's a really interesting thing where hierarchy mixes with everyone is, you know, social with each other, and lines get like blurred, like everyone goes to the bar together. But I think that in some ways makes it easier to access those mentorship relationships because it also comes out of necessity. Because thinking now, like going into my 11th year on patrol, it's like I have to mentor the people who are new and are younger than I am for all of our safety. So it's kind of a good setup in some ways. Yeah, so I think those relationships are really important. Like I feel a responsibility to the younger patrollers to do a good job so that our whole team is better. And then also thinking on Denali, like I have a really good mentor-mentee relationship with my boss, Tucker. And I mean, we are friends now. We've been working together for 6 years, but I think that also came out of necessity as well because we do these super dangerous things together. And he's like, well, if I don't mentor her, our whole team is going to be less safe. And it has been really cool over the years to build that relationship with him, get to the point where we can give each other good feedback. Like now I give him feedback too, because we have that relationship. We've developed it to that point. And I've also watched him mentor me and loosen the reins on me year after year and like give me more trust. So that has been a really special relationship. So that doesn't totally answer your question, but I do think that some of those work relationships that come out of necessity are some of the most powerful ones that I have experienced in my career.
You look like
I'm ready, yeah.
you're hot on the range there, girl.
I have opinions, we'll share. I am thinking about this right now through like the lens of being a supervisor. And it is part of my job in staffing to like avalanche courses is what I'm thinking about right now. This is also pertained to time I've spent at Knowles. But when you are putting together work teams, it is pretty important to do that intentionally and recognize where people have gaps in their training or have like really great opportunities that they need for mentorship. And as the supervisor, be really intentional about pairing folks together. Maybe that's like going out on route for the first time, or maybe that's making sure you're staffing a pro-level avalanche course with one person from the mechanized guiding world and one person from the ski patrol world, so that folks can have that peer-to-peer mentorship as they work. Obviously, like, you know, that's like the first draft of the plan, and then somebody gets injured or takes another job or whatever, and like it, you know, it doesn't always work the way you want it to. But I do think that if we're thinking about mentorship at work, you hopefully have an organization that values that. And if you don't, I would say maybe think about finding a different organization. And there should be some supervisor or somebody that you can talk to and express like where you think your gaps in knowledge are, or what you would like to be able to learn, and hopefully that you can have those goals supported and be paired with somebody else on your team that can support that. Because there are so many people who, like again, like you mentioned, I'm from Texas. Like, I was taught everything I know by somebody else. And so I love to be able to share things that I know with other people. And hopefully there are members of your team who have that same mentality. And again, if there aren't, maybe find another organization to work for.
I'll add, can I add one thing? It seems to be the theme of the day that we're like really in lockstep with a lot of this. Yeah. And it might not be a direct answer to your question, because I think it's a really good one. But being one of my jobs at NWAC is I do our hiring. And of our staff of 11 forecasters, I've hired like 8 of them. So one of the questions that I actually think is really insightful in the interview process is when the applicant looks at me and says, "What does your program do to mentor me?" And I'm like, "You're thinking about this. That's a really good thing." The other piece is, to build on a little differently than how Liz framed it, is not all operations have the ability to mentor you the way you need to be mentored. And that is their responsibility, and it is also your responsibility to find an operation that can give you what you need. NWAC is a really unique forecast center. We have a central office, sort of. We have 11 forecasters spread out all over Western Washington and Northern Oregon. We don't see each other but twice a year in the same room. We see each other on Zoom every day, but we're never in the same spot. So when I get a new applicant, if they're like, "I need a lot of mentorship," I'm like, there's certain forecasting positions that might work. There's other ones I'm like, "You'd be a great forecaster. This isn't the job for you, because you're gonna be out there on an island and you're not gonna get the mentorship that you need right now. I can't provide that." That's not saying you're not qualified, but this job doesn't fit that need.
You can create change from the bottom up. And that's, how do you say this? You have to stir it up without making enemies. Just stir it up a little bit and see where you go with it. And if it doesn't like being stirred up, then maybe you should go somewhere else. Then you're like, you are not worth my skills. I think you've gotten a lot of responses that you may not have asked for. Let's throw the green box around, or maybe you have a retort.
No, thank you. I think it's just, good to just keep on striving to learn from your peers, and sometimes that means stirring the pot, and sometimes it means just taking your ego down. So I appreciate your responses.
In any of these places, there's Maddie is behind you, but in any of these places, whether you're looking for a mentor, you are a mentor, the less ego that you can bring to the central avenue, the central whatever, the better off it's going to be. It's really hard when you're getting started, especially. Or it's really hard when you're, that third-year patroller and you the Nutting-Kruger, and you know it all. Anyway, pass it back to Maddie.
Hey, team. I was curious if you all could speak to maybe personal experiences where you've had a different risk management style or approach than a person that you're traveling with or choosing as a partner, and what that looks like in the field? Because I know you probably all pick your partners based on aligned risk management approaches, but mostly the ski cutting panel from yesterday, I was like, man, this is a spectrum of opinions, but ultimately you all went down the line and said yes to a question, right? So like, if you're learning about some of those differences when you're out in the field, what does saying no look like? What does saying, actually, I want to proceed, but you can say no? If you can just speak to that and any personal stories to color, that would be awesome.
I bet every single one of us has a personal story, and one of mine involves almost getting killed. I've told you this story. Well, I was with...
Which story is this?
A while ago now, I was out backcountry skiing in Colorado in the spring. Yeah, with a group of men. It was me and 4 dudes, and as we're boot packing up this couloir, I noticed a lot of things that were red flags, and I was afraid to verbalize them. And we get to the top, and same aspect, same shape bowl has slid to the left of us. Don't say anything. And then, of course, we ski our line, and luckily I was in a safe spot, but I almost got killed by like a D2.5 wet slide. And after that experience, if I have a different risk tolerance than my partners, I've realized I don't want to get killed in the mountains. So I'm like, well, I'll speak up, and maybe I'm just not going to ski with these people. And I've gotten more and more conservative as I have seen more people get killed and had to recover them. And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of a wuss now in the backcountry. I'm kind of a wuss now in the backcountry, unless I'm going to help someone.
Sarah Carpenter, are you in here? No, she's got this great quote about you don't want to get married on the first date. And so go do something like baby steps with that person. Like, oh, I only really have time to go do like a telemark bowl or go do like a quick shivers. And let's see how that person behaves in the backcountry. Does this make me want to go further, deeper with them? Or does this make me want to say, oh, you're my go to the movies friend?
It's funny, when that question came up, I had Sarah in my head with that exact same. And that's like an example of mentorship, right? Like her voice with that exact same kind of like, I don't know, saying that she has. Another voice, Maddie, that's in my head when you asked that question is at BendSaw last week. Sarah Boylan, who has spoken at YSAW, presented, and we're just embracing this theme here at YSAW this year. She gave a sex talk and talked about consent and talked about the difference between won't, would, and will, or won't, won't, which no means no, would, maybe, and want, which was really interesting, and talked about that from sexual consent language and how that actually really should carry over into managing avalanche terrain and starting the day with being really clear about what those parameters are so that you don't find yourself in a won't situation.
One of my takeaways from YSAW apparently is that we're merging sex ed and avalanche education. I missed this trend, but I'm glad to learn about it.
I don't know if everyone was here yesterday, but I think the recordings are available.
All right, next question. Let me ask a question of, I'm looking at you, Mark, in the front, next to front row. He's like, what, talking to me? Maddie, send that thing up here. And this guy's got this long operational career. And tell us about, I just want to bring you into the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Have you had mentors throughout your career, and how did that work?
Is this being recorded? I'll be totally honest. Yeah, I would say I've been very disappointed in the Canadian program mentorship relative to my era. I mean, I'm in the twilight of my career, and when I started out, finding mentors was not really very easy to do. and very difficult to maintain mentorships. So yeah, Mark went to School of Personal Hard Knocks, and I kicked my own ass around the mountains for a long, long time. I would get snippets of mentorship, but relationships never lasted. People disappoint you. Yeah, and I have
More sex ed.
always done my best. I've always done my best to be a good mentor to anyone that was looking for it because of my experience. But I also find it's actually has always been difficult to attain those relationships as like a long-term relationship with someone, you know. But I do have a few. There's a few folks that are kind of coming up the ranks behind me that I regularly speak with that don't work for me, but have worked for me in the past. And I've been following their careers, and I talk to them regularly, those kind of things. So I've tried to change that myself in what I do. But yeah, I would say I was very disappointed in Canada. Canada, you suck.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't
Mark,
go
I think
there.
you speak to something that was like pretty pervasive for a really long time, which was knowledge is power. And so for a lot of these people, it took them decades to get to work into their avalanche forecasting jobs. And so that knowledge of how to do this thing, of how to move in the mountains and how to understand this phenomenon was protected. And so it wasn't really divvied out. And I just want to say kudos for like changing the culture. You and that whole block lens group, like y'all have fully flipped all this on its head for us so that we can be forecasters young in our career, and we share information and we talk to each other and we friendship and we mentorship, and that was a cultural shift that y'all are a huge part of. So yeah, that's crazy I mean, I knew that, and I even saw, I was like at the tail end of it, but like absolutely that's how it happened.
I mean, I don't want to say Canada is still horrible. In fact, I actually was on a very similar panel last year at the CAA meetings talking about mentorship. So it's definitely changing, and the Canadian Avalanche Association has made leaps and bounds and made it formal and really doing their best to really work on that. You know, but yes, as a young person in Canada trying to come up a long, I don't want to say when, long time ago, it was pretty rugged for sure. But it's way better now, yes. Yeah.
Well, that's what was so really remarkable about Rod Newcomb, is that he had so little ego and that he would trust you. And if you blew his trust, then, oh well, you know, hopefully you didn't get slid. But if you fulfilled his trust, he'd give you another task. He'd give you more information. And he got that in empowering someone else, you don't lose your power. And for him, you know, starting AI in what, 1972, that was wonderful. That's why he was such a charismatic figure. It's because he embodied that. So, team, what you got?
That kind of reminds me of like starting out, even in outdoor education, like back in 2010, 2011. I remember I used to feel really competitive with other women, which is
waiting for someone to
super toxic. But, and it was because there were so few other women in the room. The assumption was like, okay, if there's someone else here that is also competent, they're going to take my spot. And luckily, I've come to realize over my career that that is not the case. Like, you know, we need to pull more women in. So that is one thing that I've really tried to do in the last 5 or so years is just, I mean, I think having examples of women up higher in the industry is super helpful, but also anytime a woman asks me for help or advice, like I have, you know, I'm really excited to provide that. Unlike Gabrielle, I'm really bad at responding to emails, so I'm sorry about that, but I try.
Gee, it's your turn to talk. You haven't said that much lately.
Yeah, when you asked about like mentorship and ski patrol, that was like my first thought, is that find another woman and find one that won't injure you when you go for the mentorship. Because that's like the worst, is when you want a woman to mentor you and she chooses the guy over you, which happens a lot. Even if you have more skill or whatever else, like, it just will happen. And with that, I think just the understanding that everyone is doing the best with the tools they had, and like, especially even 5 or 10 years ago, like, if you fought your way into a job with a sort of like scarcity mindset of like, I need to get in and like, this is my in, it would feel threatening to like see other women approaching on the job and maybe getting there easier. But I've learned that I don't compare my experience to anyone else's, because my path is gonna be different than everyone else's. And if I can make it easier for someone else, great. I don't feel like butthurt about that, for lack of better terms. Like, great, that's better, because in the end, it's gonna make my working environment better, because it is very hard to be a woman on an all-male team. Like, 4% of guides and forecasters are women. That's a very small number. So, like, and no one's really at fault with that, but it is inarguable that that causes dynamics in communication and in power dynamics in teams, like, factually. And unless the team is addressing that, and unless you have like mentorship and support through your team, it feels really isolating. But I think my advice with that is that you build your network broader, because there are women like, I text Chrissy random shit all the time. And it's cathartic to me, because someone else has had that experience too, and she can validate that for me, even if the people on my team can't, because they don't see it. So that the network can be broad, right? That's all, it can feel really bad if you can't find it on your own team, but even if you can just find it in a broader way, and maybe that's a stepstone to get somewhere else in your career. That's kind of my advice. I keep thinking about the ski cutting panel too. Sorry, because you're like, it is just so hard for us living in this brain that's always thinking about risk and likelihood and things in these terms. And I can't think of another professional career that has a sport that the general public does that overlaps with it. And it's kind of undermining, but I really agree with it. We are ski bums at some level, but we have a ton of professional training, right? Like, I try to make an analogy of like, if a heart surgeon who does hundreds of surgeries a day for years, like, shows you how to do this one move on a dummy and then puts you on a person, it's like, don't fuck it up. Like, that's what that's like, right? So and that doesn't mean you can't utilize those tools and look them up. Like, again, the internet has everything. And being in the backcountry, being in a ski area, practicing things in a safe way, that's a good way to like learn how to do something and then step into the dragon a little bit more. But I think as educators or forecasters, if you just give something to all these people and say, hey, use this in conditions that I can't exactly describe, we're okay with the fact that, we're not okay with the fact you'll use it hundreds of times, maybe for 10 years, and it'll be like the one time where it's really hard to discern whether or not you should or not. Like, that's the time we're worried about, which is very low probability time, but it exists. And it's hard for us to like illustrate that probability to you. I don't know if that made sense. Crayons.
I think we have time for one more question. There's one in the back. Mark, can we see who we can damage with that thing?
For when you're approaching that point in your career where you're starting to step up into that mentor role, are there any frameworks or qualities that you've seen be successful as you're in that mentor role, or unsuccessful? You talked about checking your ego and being curious, but like, any other things to add to that?
Read the room. Read the room. How busy is this person, and how much can they handle? And don't be upset if you don't get something back that you need right away, because this person that you're looking up to, they're human as well, and it's very difficult. What else? What do y'all got?
Was your question, I didn't totally hear everything you said. Do you mind kind of repeating or summarizing your question again?
Yeah, when you're stepping up to being in the mentor role rather than the mentee role, if you're kind of new to that space or thinking about it, like what are things you like, or yeah, sorry, not a great way to phrase it, but like frameworks or like qualities that you think makes a good mentor?
Yeah.
Oh, look for somebody that you have an affinity with, you know? They present, and after class, you go up and you're like, hey, I have this question about this point in your slide, and you end up in this conversation, and it's like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, wow, that was really interesting. Can we take that a little further? And maybe you don't say, oh, will you be my mentor? Oh, can I give you a ring? It's like, no, can we go out on a coffee date? You know, so it's the same, go slow, use consent. What else?
So honestly, the fact that you're asking that question, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're probably mentoring somebody and you don't know it. My bet, maybe you do know it, but like my bet is you're already a mentor, because more often than not, these things find us in ways we never thought they would. To answer the question, like I can't say something specific, but my bet is if you look at those relationships and you see what about you and your personality, what you bring to that, like I love the check and the ego thing, but also like take some pride in the fact that you bring things to those relationships and figure out what that is and lean into those things. Don't be something you're not. Be the thing that you really are and that you're already really good at. And so that's where I really think, I think we do this a lot more than we think we do, because I think it's probably, there's really great formal stuff. There's also so much inorganic that is within this, and especially within our friend groups and our work environments. And so, yeah, sit there and think about your friends that you're already probably, they're like going to talk about you, like this whole floor will talk about Lynn.
When I heard your question again, I had a really similar internal monologue. I think we're new best friends, even though we just met in person, which is great. But I was just gonna say, just be honest. I don't think you need to be something or have a structure other than just conversation and just being honest and talking to people. And that has been so powerful for me is just to be oh, here's how I think about things. Here's what I don't know. And just actually not really try to put a class together or anything, but just be really honest, brutally honest, has really helped me to hear folks who are willing to be brutally honest with me. And also share the things that you have learned with other people. I think any training I have done, the entire talk I just gave, any mentorship I've done, I am just repeating things I learned from somebody else. And so I usually am, when I'm asked a question, I am saying well, what I was told by somebody who's been a mentor to me is blank, and the way that I've kind of thought about it is this. And that has just been really honest, and has seemed to land and work for people. And then I will say, this is something that I think is important, is if you are mentoring, if you are sharing an opinion, if you are giving advice, this is the ego thing, it's okay if it's not taken, and just be okay with throwing it out there and letting people then make it their own.
I'm gonna put a hard stop, because we could take a different type of beverage and talk about this till the cows come home, but we need to move on. Thank you so much for showing up.
Lynn, thank you for your mentorship.